वैवस्वताय मृत्यवे ब्रह्मविद्याचार्याय नचिकेतसे च. The second verse that deals with the words Shreyas and Preyas is as follows. Shreyascha Preyascha Manusyam Etah Tau Samparitya Vivinakti Dhiraha Shreyo hi Dhiraha Abhipreyaso Vrinite Preyo Mandaha Yogakshemad Vrinite. So, in the last verse, we learnt a lot about the nature of Shreyas and Preyas. Shreyas is a synonym, another word for moksha, freedom from seeking altogether, and freedom from being a forever seeker. Preyas is the pursuit of finite ends and using finite means, namely that of action, and then anticipating some result of action. And then, because the results of actions are always incomplete, unfavorable, not enough, then more action is unleashed, therefore binding the jiva, the seeker, the person, into a path of infinite seeking, which is in fact the meaning of the word prayas. So here, in the next verse, in the earlier verse also, just to recap, it was pointed out that the one who seeks Shreyas has been united with the purpose of the human birth, and the one who seeks prayers has been derailed from the purpose of human birth, has missed the boat, missed the bus, whatever metaphor you want to use, and has to start all over again. And so, therefore, in this current verse, which we will see here, what is talked about, what Lord Yama unfolds, is the discrimination, the quality of viveka. He talks about how the pursuit of Shreyas is confusing because it is not a tangible pursuit, and therefore, how to pursue this intangible I, which is centered on the truth, which is centered on this I itself that I recognized as the indweller of the body mind sense complex. How to pursue this I when I am myself the pursuer? Is it like a cat chasing its own tail? What does this story entail? This is what the next verse is going to talk about. Let us see. So Lord Yama says, Shreyascha Preyascha. This thing called Shreyas and this another thing called Preyas. Manushyam etaha. Etaha means they come in front of whom? The people. Manushya. Manushyam, they come in front of the person. So both of them stand, as it were, side by side in front of the person. Each one saying, choose me. No, no, no. Preyas pushes aside Shreyas and stands in front of Shreyas and says, forget that other fellow, choose me. Look, I am glittering. I am full of lots of delectable things. And I offer something called instant gratification. More about that later. But I can give you happiness right now because your heart longs after this, that, or the other, which I represent in terms of all your pursuits. Choose me, pick me, want me. Run after me, says Preyas. And what does Shreyas do? Shreyas is very bad at advertising itself. It has no competition. It doesn't compete with Preyas because Shreyas, in a way, knows that all that is there is myself alone. Just like you don't compete with your shadow and get angry with it for becoming longer than you, taller than you, and say, "Don't steal my thunder." Nobody tells that to the shadow. If the shadow is long, let it be long, let it be tall. I don't mistake the shadow to be one more entity. So the person who understands this is not threatened by prayers. Whereas the person who is into the pursuit of prayers thinks that Shreyas is something different. And so it's almost as though if we animate the pursuit called prayers, if the pursuit called prayers were to be a walking, talking human being, that prayers in the form of a person, would push aside Shreyas and stand in front and say, "Pick me," like a small, insistent child. Prayas is therefore very, very childlike. And does Shreyas, let us suppose that Shreyas was a person with a human mind, does she mind being in the background? Not at all. Because she understands that prayers cannot be without her. Without her presence, there is no prayers. In fact, she gives prayers its existence. So there is nothing to prove, nothing to put itself forward, and that is one of the reasons, as we saw earlier in the morning, that Shreyas is often missed. So that's why here Shreyas and Prayas come in front of the person, Lord Yama says. But one thing we have to remember is that they are not standing side by side. Prayas is up front and center. Shreyas is hanging in the background. In fact, like a threatened cat. When a cat is threatened, it walks sideways and it makes its makes its fur into a mane, and it tries to look bigger than it is. This is what prayas is, responding to the pressure of the threats and the raga and dvesha of everyday life. It makes it appear bigger than it is. In the process, hides Shreyas effectively. Shreyas is not seen because prayas is immediately available, immediately an object that one can pursue with the means of knowledge at hand. But here, Lord Yama says in the second line, Tau samparitya. Tau means those two. Samparitya. Having examined both of them very carefully. The wise person, meaning the discriminative individual, the individual who is capable of this kind of discernment between what anitya prayas. Anitya means that which is not lasting at all, anitya, and Shreyas Nitya, that which is permanent. That which is permanent is limitless. That which is permanent is another word for happiness, ananda, joy. That which is permanent cannot be outside of you, because you would be delimiting that limitlessness if you put it outside of you. This is something the dhira, the person who is of discernment and fortitude, knows very clearly. Tau samparitya, having carefully weighed both Shreyas and Preyas on a scale. On one side you put Shreyas, on one side you put Preyas. What happens? Preyas very light, Shreyas is the only thing that is. That is what it is. And so Tau Samparitya, having examined the two together very, very carefully, Samyak, Samyak means very nicely discern between the two. Vivinakti Dhiraha. Vivinakti means chooses. It's not a default choice. Oh, let me just grab right what is in front of me. No, let me grab it because the other one is dull, looks dull, and this one looks shiny. No. Discerns carefully before making a choice. And the parameters of the choice are also very nicely described here. Beautiful. The parameters of the choice are such that, the next line says this: धीरः श्रेयः अभिप्रेयसो वृणीते. And the basic sentence here is धीरः श्रेयो वृणीते. The dhira, the wise person of discriminating intellect, naturally, having examined both the choices at hand, chooses Shreyas. And then the word abhipreyas vrinite means chooses Shreyas over Preyas. For the wise one, the choice is very, very clear. The person chooses Shreyas over Preyas. And then what? Then, of course, there is, you can't just stop the verse there because there are takers for Preyas also. Not everybody is a dhira. Some people are not dhiras, some people are on the way, dhira wannabe. And so then what to do? What about the people who choose prayers? And as I told you, Lord Yama does not mince words at all. Mandaha preyo vrinite. Manda means dull. This is often a term. The word manda is used in Ayurveda to describe a stomach upset. You've eaten a lot, there is some big festival, and you've eaten a lot. And the next day, you just want to you don't even want to look at the food. No matter how delectable the spread is, somebody has cooked for you very carefully a multi course meal of all your favorite vegetables and favorite ingredients, and you feel slightly sick, full, don't feel like moving. And this is, called a stomach fog. Okay, and now you transfer that condition to the brain. Aha, that is manda. And nowadays, in the modern parlance, we have an expression, brain fog. This is manda. Nothing is wrong with the brain. The ability to discriminate is there, but for some reason, there is a handicap. It is not exercised. It's not some kind of a developmental challenge. It is not some kind of an impairment. The impairment is only in the ability. What is compromised is not the brain or the intellect. What is compromised is the ability to make the correct choice. Why? The last word, the last phrase in the verse says it all. Yoga kshemat mandaha preyo vrinite. I mean, are you mad? Why would anybody? You can ask somebody, are you mad? Why would you choose prayas over shreyas? Why would you choose? Are you in your right mind? When you know after reading or after studying or after listening to the Kathopanishad and other Upanishads, don't you know that Shreyas is the superior choice? Why would anybody in their right mind choose prayers? Because of the brain fog. So what is the cause of this fog? What are the ingredients that make up the fog? Raga and dvesha. Simple, we always come back to that. We may go meandering into the garden of the Upanishad, but the staple diet of discussion is raga and dvesha. This is what has to be understood. Raga, strong prejudices, dvesha, raga, strong preferences, dvesha, strong prejudices. This is at the core of every missed opportunities, missed choices, missed ability to study about the truth of oneself, and the compromised choice, the lesser choice of prayers. When Shreyas is waving to you and says, "Come," you still don't go there. Why? Because of uninterrogated preferences and prejudices that cause fear. This is what the whole thing is. We'll see a lot about this shortly. But in this verse, in this mantra in the Kathopanishad, Lord Yama is basically uh, talking about not only the two choices that are there, but the two kinds of takers available to exercise these choices. The one is already evolved through yoga, through following a life of karma yoga, through following a life of discrimination, through a life that is totally given to self growth rather than the fulfillment of every desire and every fancy that floats in the mind. And therefore, the the ability to pursue this is something that is cultivated. The ability to pursue shreyas doesn't happen automatically. There is a prerequisite. Dhiratvam, the status of being a discriminating individual, is the prerequisite. And so, therefore, discrimination has to be cultivated. We'll see later how. And then the next one, the one who chooses prayers, even though Shreyas is the better choice, is the more preferable choice, is the one who is hijacked by unresolved desires. And here, instead of the word raga and dvesha, which has been copyrighted by the Bhagavad Gita, here the Kathopanishad uses another term, yoga kshema. Yoga, yoga and kshema. Yoga cha, kshema cha, yoga kshemam, yoga kshema. So, yoga here doesn't mean asana, doesn't mean the practice of karma yoga. Yoga here has a technical meaning that is specific to the expression yoga kshema. Apraptasya prapanam yoga. Yoga here is defined as the gain of that which is not yet gained. So it is, in other words, raga and dvesha. So all my unfulfilled, yet to be fulfilled desires are called yoga in this Sanskrit technical term. All the desires that are yet to be fulfilled are called yoga, and the desire, and this includes the things that I have acquired by chance, which I did not want, and that which has to be kept at bay. Things which have to be kept at bay and things which are yet to be acquired, they together comprise the pursuit called yoga. So, in the realm of human affairs, in samsara, it's not enough to gain what you haven't gained. Let's say you gain it mahata ayasena, with great difficulty, with a lot of work. Then what happens? Then you can't let it go. You have to protect it. You have to protect it. Sometimes from itself, you have to protect it. Like even money, you get a lot of money, and then how much money is enough to retire? No amount of money is enough to retire. No amount of money. Why? Because strangely enough, money is an entity that needs to be protected from itself. Why? Inflation. Now in America, they are already saying be prepared for inflation, because that is what is going to come. So this inflation means this money that you have acquired, yoga, then requires kshema, protection, because it is losing its value even as you speak. So then you have to protect it by putting it in stocks and bonds and all kinds of things. You are the one that's bound, okay, not the money. But that is what happens. You put it in various kinds of, you have to protect it from itself. So this is a wonderful example to illustrate yoga and kshema at the same time. So there is this thing called money, and then you haven't got it, somebody else has it, but then you get it somehow, and then you have to protect it from itself. Kshema. And if we examine the gamut of all the pursuits of the human being in the world, can be reduced to two. What are you doing? Don't say I'm looking for a job. I am doing yoga today. What are you doing? Don't say I'm reinvesting my assets. I am into Kshema today. That's all. And this is why even this yoga kshema thinking has percolated the realm of human affairs so much that in the ancient times, when people actually used to write letters, when there was no email, no SMS, and all these kinds of instant chats and messaging were not available, no FaceTime, they would actually pull out a piece of paper, which will soon belong to the museum, and a pen, and then they would write a letter which would take 3 4 days to reach the other person. And on top of the letter, before hello, how are you, dear so and so, would be om, and then underneath the om would be a word, kshemam, meaning we are happily busy protecting everything that we have acquired, meaning life is as usual, and we hope the same for you. So the word kshemam would be there in on the top of the letter, so that you don't open the letter with trepidation, because the same letter can get what is that, can contain a death notice. Somebody is dying, somebody has passed away, or somebody is about to pass away, no hope, has put them in the hospital. Such news also can come in the same letter, in the same looking envelope. So there would be an anticipation and a dread, a happy anticipation while opening the letter, and a sense of dread. Oh no, OMG, I hope it is not bad news. So the first thing they would do, and I have seen this in my childhood, when the elders would open the letter, they would scan the top left hand corner. Kshemam. Ha. Okay, now we can sit and enjoy reading the letter. See how the words have become part of the vernacular, part of the culture. So the definition of kshemam means I am happy. Don't think it's a wonderful word, okay? I am happy protecting my people, my possessions, my property, my sense of well-being. And I am sure you are also happily, if not happily, you are still somehow doing the same. That makes us same. We have matching pursuits, so we are in this together. So this is kshema. And then yoga is that longing, fulfilling the longing of everything that is not acquired. So don't bother, especially if you're on the spiritual path of any kind, whether it is yoga, Vedanta, whatever it is, they're all the same, really, ultimately. And what if you are a spiritual seeker, give yourself the gift of not specifying your pursuit. Just say, I am doing yoga right now, or I'm doing kshema right now. This will make this will make the this will unveil the pursuit from its supposed altruism. This will lay bare the pursuit for what it is. And every person, until they encounter Vedanta, until they encounter an ashram, until they encounter these teachings, are following yoga and kshema mindlessly. The two most popular items in the universe are represented by yoga and kshema. Running after yoga, running to gain what is not gained, the whole gamut of human pursuits, or protecting what is gained, keeping at bay what the one doesn't want, that is also yoga, and then getting rid of what one has acquired but what one doesn't want, starting with gray hair, starting with bad mood. All these things are part of yoga and kshema. And this yoga and kshema are they hold the person in a vice grip. One chooses yoga and kshema wrongly because of the fear, and the fear of not getting what I want, not being able to protect what I have, comes from insecurity. Yesterday we had the we had the ancestry of ajnanam. Comes from insecurity. Insecurity comes from self ignorance. This is why all the frenetic running around like a what should we say, chickenless head, only the head is rolling around in brain fog. One is disconnected, alienated from the pursuit because one is, diverted to pursuing everything that is finite. One is alienated from the pursuit, one is alienated from oneself because the pursuit is nothing but the pursuit of the self. And one is running around in the finite realm of yoga and kshema infinitely. This is the problem. Then, if we look carefully, we find that actually we are familiar with this Upanishadic term, yoga and kshema, because it also occurs in the Bhagavad Gita. Right in the middle of the ninth chapter, and the ninth chapter is right in the middle of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna makes a promise to Arjuna. And what is the promise? Ananyashchintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. Yogakshemam vahami aham. That is the main thing of this whole word, this promise. Lord Krishna says, vahami, I will carry, I will bear the burden of what? Your yoga and kshema. Don't be embroiled in this yoga kshema pursuit. Don't become susceptible to the brain fog and go into the wrong pursuit. You know better. Give me the burden of carrying your yoga and your kshema. I will carry it. In fact, I have been carrying it. I have just up till now let you think you are carrying it. Now I'm going to lay this bare and tell you, I am the one carrying yoga, your yoga, and means all the things that you want, you haven't yet got. And I am the one carrying your kshema. Yoga kshemam vahami aham. Oh, really? You're going to give me what I don't have and what I want? Sure. In time, maybe in the next life. You don't know when it will come, but it will come. If there is not some prarabdha, prabala prarabdha, a strong karma that is opposing it, yes, pray for it. No problem. I will carry what you want. I will protect what you have. That is not your job. In fact, you are stuck in this sorrow, Arjuna, and by extension, all the jivas, all of you, Lord Krishna appears to be saying, are stuck in this life of sorrow and strife because you are taking on the portfolio of another person, namely me. If you take on my portfolio, where will I go? What will I do? So leave to me what is mine. And that is why if you do somebody else's job, naturally you will get stressed out. Naturally you will be upset. Naturally you will be all confused. And naturally you will not have any satisfaction. And so this is not your job. To give the fruit of your action is my job. The fruit of actions, including prayer, because prayer is also an action. It's not your job. Why are you taking on somebody else's job? Why are you taking on my job? You do your job, and everybody is happy. And I will do my job. Yoga kshemam vahami aham. Then let us imagine the jiva is feeling all without a job. OMG, all this time I have been running around like a headless chicken. What if I'm not supposed to do this? What am I supposed to do? All day long, no yoga pursuit. Oh, cancel, big cross on it. No kshema pursuit. No, another cross on it. Okay, what should I do? Whole day. You have your job as a spiritual seeker. You cultivate devotion, bhakti, and that bhakti and shraddha, faith, takes you to the knowledge, takes you at the feet of the knowledge, which is described in this verse of as Ananya Chintanam. Ananya Chintanam, the contemplation of yourself as non separate from me. That is what you do. Now you cannot blame me. Now you cannot blame yoga and kshema for taking up all your time. Because we are the masters of distraction and diversion. We love to be distracted. First we complain, I have no time. You think I don't want to study Vedanta? I'm busy doing karma yoga. Too much karma yoga. And then not enough time to study. And let's say the person is told, just go study. And not even for the rest of your life, just today. Go study, meditate, do your sadhana, do whatever you want. Study. Listen to the lectures. Listen, catch up on the Kathopanishad. Do everything, whatever you need to do. And will the person go study? No. The person will check the Facebook update. The person will do something else. The person will see the news, some sensation, some drama, something. And if nothing is available, the person will sit and rehash old drama. So even if there is time, that doesn't mean the person is going to put themselves, commit themselves, marry themselves to a life of Ananya Chintanam, a pursuit of understanding the truth of the I as Bhagavan, which is the teaching of all the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita. They will not apply themselves to that. It is difficult. So therefore, Ananya Chintanam is a cultivation, it's a process, it's an application, but it is something to be cultivated by pressing the override button on the Raga, Dvesha, Yoga, Kshema pursuit. Ananyaha Chintayanto Mam. Those who contemplate upon me as non-separate from themselves. Ye janaha, those people. Paryupasate, those people for whom their worship of me is understanding my nature as non-separate from themselves, or understanding their own nature as non-separate from me. This is the highest form of worship according to Lord Krishna. Elsewhere also, he delineates 4 kinds of devotees. Chaturvidha bhajante mam, and janaha sukritanaha. So these people of good karma, worship me in four types of people are there, four types of devotees. What are they? The first one, he says, is God Bhagavan. Lord Krishna is on speed dial. It's the person who is a 911 bhakta. 911 is an emergency number. And until everything is going well, Bhagavan is not even coming into the picture. And suddenly something goes wrong. Oh Lord, where are you? How can you abandon me so? Give me darshan, come to my aid. The emergency bhakta, 911 bhakta. And the other one is called, the second kind is called Artharthi. Artharthi means the person is a little more pragmatic, the pragmatic devotee who is totally into prayers. The first one is also into prayers, therefore 911. The second one is into prayers and knows that I am into prayers, but wants the blessings of Bhagavan. And so we'll make a deal with Bhagavan. This is very common in India. Oh Lord, the student will say, help me to pass the exams, and then I will I will give you something. I'll give some money. My next pocket money will be a donation to the temple. As though the temple is waiting for this fellow's donation, but this is how it is. Or the entrepreneur, the person who is forming a big company, says, I will call it Krishna Enterprises. And he will tell Krishna also, this businessman will tell Krishna, you know what, you be the sleeping partner, I will do all the work. What a travesty. Krishna is laughing. And because Krishna in fact is doing all the work, you be the sleeping partner. And then because it is named Krishna Enterprises, then what will happen? It will of course be profitable because it is being run in your name. 50% of the profit I will come and give you personally. This is the second type of devotee. The third type of devotee says, who are you, O Lord? Where are you? I want to know you. I don't know your nature. This is called the devotee who is a jignasu. Jignasa means jnatum ichha, the desire to know. Not the desire to gain something out of Bhagavan, but the desire to know Bhagavan, for what Bhagavan is. Third type of devotee. The fourth type of devotee is the one who says, who is a jnani, who says, I know I'm non separate from you. Yet I remain surrendered to you as long as I have this body, mind, sense complex. From the standpoint of this body, the so called difference is expressed in devotion, essentially non-separate, and this as though separation I enjoy through the medium of devotion. This is the jnani bhakta. You see, the word bhakta doesn't change. Artha bhakta, then what is that? Artharthi bhakta, then the bhakta that is called jignasu, and then jnani bhakta. Once you become a jnani, a person of self knowledge, it's not that the bhakti goes. In fact, all that there is bhakti. And even though we, sitting here, might make fun of the first two kinds of bhaktas, oh, this person has got 911, Bhagavan is as good as 911, emergency bhakta, or the pragmatic bhakta. Lord Krishna says, at least they are all praying. Udara sarva evate. Te sarve, all of them are udaraha. They are all exalted, O Arjuna. But please know this, jnani tu atma eva me matam. But the jnani is myself alone. The jnani bhakta is dear to me because the jnani knows I am he, I am she, and that person is me. And so again, in this verse from the ninth chapter that we have been understanding, where the words yoga and kshema appear very prominently. So the Paryopasanam, the all round and the total worship of the Lord, the devotion of the Lord is a complete devotion. Not when one is doing homa, not when one is doing puja, not when one is doing bhajans or chanting, not when one is doing the sadhana called meditation, but when the person is living their life from a spirit of non difference, having Ishvarized the whole universe. Okay, I was able to see in a moment of rare grace that all this universe is Ishvara. Okay, am I a Ananya Chintaka? Am I a contemplator like Bhagavan talks about? Because sometimes in moments of grace, that oneness is understood and abided in very deeply. Lord Krishna says no in the second line. Tesham nitya abhiyuktanam. It's not enough to just have a sudden moment of indulgence in the oneness. This is a lifelong, dedicated, committed pursuit of the knowledge of oneself as limitless and whole, and that is the best and the highest and the most exalted form of worship. And then, of course, the question comes, okay, I'll sit and study. Are you going to pay my bills? Are you going to raise my children? Are you going to do this? Are you going to pay the mortgage? Are you going to look for a job for me? Lord Krishna says, yes, I dare you to have the Shraddha. Oh, but I don't have the Shraddha. I'm not going to let go. Well, until the proof is in the pudding. You have to test it out. Until you test it out, you can't be assured that this promise is going to come true. You can't be assured. Just like the person who wants to learn swimming, and this is an example I give often. The swimming student cannot tell the swimming guru, I'm really frightened of the water. And therefore, what? Therefore, on land, when we are both standing here, teach me all the moves. Teach me front stroke, back stroke, butterfly stroke, so that when after pani mein utarne ke baad, after I get into the water, then I will not sink. Not possible. Not possible. You first have to sink, then then the teacher will say, don't flail, slowly put the arm in front, put the other arm in front, visualize yourself as a fish, matsyavatara, and then what? And then move the feet as though they are fins. This is what you have to do. Same thing here. You cannot say, when I am retired, when the time is right, after I am up to here with prayers, then slowly, little bit of Shreyas, I'll touch the water with my feet. No. The pursuit of the Lord is the pursuit of Shreyas. The pursuit of the Lord as non separate from oneself is indeed the pursuit of Shreyas. And it is the Lord being limitless, the I being limitless. There is no other place for any other pursuit. It is an all encompassing pursuit. The Shreyas is as though takes over you. If you allow it, of course. That's why it's a choice. And so you cannot say, I want a little bit of moksha just to taste and see what it is like. And then I want a little bit of samsara. Samsara and moksha are not items in the buffet that can be enjoyed by the same person at the same time on the same plane or on the same plate. Cannot be possible. All that there is moksha alone. That's the only pursuit. But what about my yoga kshema? Leave it to Bhagavan. Leave it to Bhagavan. and then see what happens. This is how it is. This is even with food. Are you going to put food on the table? Well, you know what? If you are meant to live and if you are meant to eat, food will come. Oh, you think I should stop cooking? Well, if you have the space in your life to do that, please do that. But then what if it doesn't come? One day take it as a cleansing fast. Second day also it didn't come. Okay, now it is a detox. Third day also it didn't come. It will definitely come. Somebody will give something or the other. Somebody will suddenly bring something, or something will happen that you will be provided, because that is how it is. That's why when you were born, you didn't bring a sandwich along with you or a milk bottle. You didn't bring. You came into the world hungry and naked. All beings come into the world hungry and naked. No baby thinks, oh, I've heard that I need food. Let me pack a sandwich in the safety of the mother's womb. Peanut butter and jelly. Nobody comes out with a sandwich with a lunch bag. Oh, I've heard that I have to start breathing on my own. Let me carry an oxygen tank. Nobody comes prepared. Look at the baby. The pursuits of yoga and kshema are not there at all. Helplessly it is ejected in the world, into this vast world. Milk is there, food in a way that this newborn's intestines and the stomach can digest is provided. It's given. Food is given. Air to breathe is given. All the baby needs to do is open its mouth and cry. The air goes in, and then it is surprised. Oh, okay, this is called breathing. And then the air comes out. Breathing happens. And that's why, if you look at all these, what is that? Recently, there was somebody sent something to me, giraffe cam. So, in some sanctuary, they were following a giraffe that was pregnant and about to give birth. And so it was on giraffe cam. So you could see the baby giraffe come into the world. How beautiful. Small legs, small body, long neck. And then, the whole animal was neck and the tiny legs, because it was newborn. The neck seems disproportionately big, even in the case of the adult zebra, but in the case of the baby zebra, it was extreme. And then the baby zebra did not pull out of its pocket a GPS, how to get to the mother's breast. It did not need a route. Its eyes were all shut. It could not even see, it could barely walk, but somehow it found its way to the food. This is how Lord takes care of yoga and kshema for those who are not able to. And for those who do not want to spend their time, spend their energy in yoga kshema pursuits. And so the excuse that I cannot study because I have too much work, I'm doing so much, is gone. And it's just like the word householder. I am a householder, therefore I cannot study. People tell me this all the time. And I say to them, you know what? I wish you were a householder. Because holder means what? You are holding something. If I am holding something, I can drop it at will, correct? So you are not the householder, you are house held. This is what it is. So you think you are grabbing on to prayers, but as I told you earlier, prayers grabs on to you harder and longer than you are grabbing on to it. Being wedded to prayers is a rank form of self sabotage. Being wedded to prayers is a form of just saying goodbye to the knowledge of the self and forever being confined to pursuits that are dead end, leaving one completely deadened. And so, therefore, this is the highest form of worship. And for those whose primary pursuit in life is myself alone as the truth of their own nature, and for such people for whom this commitment is not just a 5 minute long commitment, but a lifelong commitment, for them I shall provide. For them, for such worshippers, I shall take care of whatever they need. It will come to them unasked, and it will because they are doing whatever they are supposed to do. They are not interfering in my karma phala, in giving them my karma phala. So I will give them whatever they need, and let them do whatever they are supposed to. So, how to cultivate this Shraddha and Bhakti to let Bhagavan take care of yoga and Kshema? We will see in the next session. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Thank you very much.